I can't feel myself. A commonly asked question and concern. This is Shores of Infinity with your host Chris. A lot of people ask me or tell me, I can't feel myself. What can I do? Well, of course, the self is an artificial construct. And I'm also not part of the school who thinks that there's something like a true self. There is something that Sri calls the psychic being, but it's not a self. It's a collective phenomenon. And it has to do with intuition, not with thought, emotion, or perceiving oneself as an individual. It's the opposite. Yet, of course, on the way to the psychic being, on the way to enlightenment, on the way to spiritual awakening, people often aspire to lose the ego, to destroy the ego, annihilate the ego, I don't know, leave behind the ego, dethrone the ego, which is, of course, the personality and the perception of feeling to be an individual. Before you can do that, however, you need to be in contact with your personality. Your personality needs to be fully developed, and you need to be in contact with it. If you can't feel it, if you can't feel yourself a lot of the time or sometimes, then you can't really get rid of it, because it's mostly subconscious. First, the personality needs to be studied, and then it can be let go of. If you can't study it because you can't feel it, because you can't perceive it, that's difficult. And when people say that, they mean that quite literally. They can't feel themselves. It's not only that they don't know what to do, they can't decide, they can't feel their body even. They feel discorporate somehow, as if they were standing next to themselves. So the solution is quite simple. Feel into your body. The body is the link here. It's complete nonsense, all the traditions who scold the body, who tell you, ignore the body, you're not your body. Yeah, you're not only your body, but you're also your body. The body is the link. If the body is gone, you're dead. As long as you're alive, the body is the link. The body is the anchor. The body is the platform for everything that happens. The software doesn't run without a hardware. Without a computer or cell phone, you can't listen to this video. That's the body. You need the body. You need to be in constant contact with your body, even if you're not only the body. If you have the impression that you can't feel your body, or if you can't feel yourself, there's one obvious solution to it. Yes, you guessed it, trauma therapy. Also, if you stick to your body, the danger of spiritual bypassing is very low. If you don't stick to your body, if you don't take care of your body and stay in contact with your body, the danger of spiritual bypassing, of fooling yourself, is very high. How does it come that some people can't feel themselves or can't feel their body? It's, of course, a trauma response. Something happened, probably in your childhood, maybe at some other point. Something happened that was so horrible at that time that you had to disengage, disassociate. And this has become a habit. Whenever something becomes or appears strange, threatening, dangerous, overwhelming, then you disengage again. Yeah? It's a feeling of constantly being overwhelmed and threatened. And this is so horrible that it's easier for the system not to feel anything. So people say, I can't feel myself, or I can't feel the body. Well, in actual fact, it's a feeling of complete being overwhelmed, threatened, afraid, ashamed, guilted, being at someone else's mercy. This is not a nice feeling. Or being ignored. This is also horrible. So instead of feeling ignored, threatened, overwhelmed, etc., the solution is to disengage and not feel anything. Well, in actual fact, when this happens, what you should do is feel into the body, sense into your body. What is the sensation right now in your body? And this is also how trauma therapy works. Stuff is stored in your body and can be released there. And with the help of your body, through your body, you can also reintegrate your split off parts of your personality that have suffered so much. And once you have done that to some degree, you don't have to do therapy until kingdom come. But if you have reintegrated the parts of your personality to some degree and gotten to know your body and your subconscious to some degree, then spiritual awakening and maybe later enlightenment is much easier and much less painful. And then you can really let go of this personality. Well, if it's still a jumble, if it's still chaos, full of fear, you cannot let go of it. The guardians are too strong. So even if you don't have the impression or feeling that you can't feel yourself, or you don't know who you are, what you are, you can't feel your body, you can't feel yourself. Even if that is not the case, you probably know the feeling of being overwhelmed. And this is the same. Maybe not as strong, but it's the same thing. If you're often overwhelmed, think about it. Who is overwhelmed? Who is overwhelmed by day-to-day activities? By having to make decisions, having to go to work and earn money, having to take on responsibility. Who is overwhelmed by that? Children. So these are children aspects of yourself hidden in your subconscious who need to grow up. They're stuck in their children personality because at that age something happened to them and then they got stuck there. And as I said on Patreon and on other occasions, when I say try out trauma therapy, I don't mean read a book. I mean go to a seasoned trauma therapist, preferably one, of course, who has experience with spirituality, him or herself. Of course, the opposite can also happen. Some people get really addicted to psychotherapy, trauma therapy, inner work and stuff like that, shadow work and whatever they call it. And they do it for years and nothing else. That's also too much. And lastly, I'd be very careful with psychomedications. Then really inner work becomes difficult. Why? Because they dull the subtle world, the subtle body. We have this gross body, which is very important, but then we have also the subtle and the mental body. And those, the subtle and the mental, they get, how should I put it, tucked away. You cannot reach them anymore. You can see them, but you can't really touch them. So if you're taking medications like that, like antidepressants, which are very, very commonly prescribed, and no wonder that you can't feel yourself. No wonder. Because that is their purpose. The purpose is that all feelings are de-intensified. That all feelings get flattened. All sensations as well. So there will be less depression, of course, but there will be less of everything else as well. Another thing is some heart medications like beta blockers. They can also create the feeling of standing next to oneself, of being not in contact with oneself. They're also very commonly prescribed and they're not harmless. I'm not telling you here, this is not medical advice, I'm not telling you here to stop taking your medications. I'm just telling you that this can be a reason for not being able to feel oneself. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing. Thank you for joining me on Patreon. Thank you for all those who have already joined me on Patreon. And see you sometimes, somewhere in time and space. And crawling on the planet's face, some insects called the human race are lost in time and lost in space and in meaning.